Hello and welcome back to the channel. It is Flame once again from Team Legends, and welcome back to another deck discussion video. Continuing with our deep dive into the series of Hunter x Hunter in the early stages of Union Arena. This time it'll be a brand new color, as we've already gone through both of the green decks, so we're going to move on to a new color in this episode, and this one will be the color of blue. If you enjoy the video at any point, feel free to leave a like or a comment down below, and without further ado, I introduce to you Blue Bomber. Blue Bomber, or Blue Genthru as it is otherwise known, is one of the two blue decks that came out in Hunter x Hunter, and was never really one of the more powerful decks of the two blue decks when it first came out in 2024. Back in the day, this deck was a deck that really was lacking a lot on the power scale. It was able to do some cheeky things with the Raid Genthru and the Bara to out anything with 4,000 or less, which in the early stages was a lot of powerful cards, but it didn't really have anything for closing and was really more of a gamble deck than anything else. The main strategy of the deck, of course, to resolve risky dice as many times as possible, so you're able to get your characters to higher BP so they can swing over just about anything that comes in front of them. I personally, when given the choice between the two blue decks back when Hunter x Hunter first released, much preferred the specified slot deck because it felt a lot more powerful than this deck, and I was really waiting for just some kind of support to showcase that this deck really could have potential. And what support it got. When Volume 2 came out, this deck was now my new favorite. It was so much fun to play, being able to be more of a control deck in the game of Union Arena and really just mess with your opponent in any way possible. As always, we'll go through the card by card discussion, explaining what the cards are and why they are in the deck, as well as a little bit more information of the deck's playstyle. And if you want to skip ahead at any point, there are timestamps down below in the description where you can skip ahead right to the gameplay. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in with the all-important zeros of the deck. We're going to breeze through a couple of these cards as it's really a no-brainer as to why they're in the deck. 4 copies of the 0/1 Gone Freaks, draw discard, draw trigger, 0. Pretty much nothing else needs to be said. Another card that's really a no-brainer why it's here at 4. 4 copies of the Genthru, the main raid target, get trigger, 0. Really nothing else needs to be said about it. It's in here at 4. Now here's a card, however, that will require a little bit more discussion as it's brand new to the deck courtesy of Volume 2. 4 copies of the 0/1 Sub and Bara. When played, looks at the top card of your deck, and you can either leave it there or put it on the bottom of your deck. It sculpts the top of your deck at any point in the game, so if you play it early, you know what you're drawing on. If you need to draw into a 0 or another low energy cost to get going, and if you need to play it later on in the game to resolve something like your risky dice or anything like that, you can just play it, look at the top card, and if you want to leave it there, you can. Otherwise, just go straight to the bottom. It also can be treated as a 2 required energy card if it is revealed on the top of your deck, which is really only done off of either the Genthru, the Bara, or the risky dice, and the key word in that is can be treated as a 2. It doesn't have to be, and it can stay as a 0 if you truly wanted to, but if you need the instance to do so, you can treat it as a 2, which will come up later on in the video. Moving right along, of course, we'll be playing 3 copies of this 1/1 Genthru. Another raid target for the deck. You want to get as many as possible. We are playing a total of 11 Genthrus for 4 raids, which is a little bit more than normal, but 4 of them, of course, are going to be cards that can stand on their own. So in reality, it's 7 Genthrus for 4 raids, which is about standard. Also, likewise to the Sub and Bara, sculpts the top of your deck when played. You can look at the top of your deck. You can leave it there if you want to. Otherwise, you put it on the bottom of your deck. Only going to be playing 3 of this card as we're going to have a lot of sculptors already in the deck and making use of the other one in the deck, which we're going to get to right now. This 1/1 Sub is the searcher for the deck. When played, you can look at the top 4 cards of the deck. You reveal up to 1 Bomber Affinity or 1 Risky Dice card among the 4 cards and add it to your hand. The rest go on the bottom of the deck, and of course, if you add a card, you have to discard. This sub is not limited to what it can search of any Bomber Affinity. It can even search itself if you find one, so you can essentially go the top 8 of your deck if you go sub into sub. It also searches the Risky Dice Sight card, and the only character it really can't search is the Gorinu that we'll be touching on here in a bit, and the aforementioned 0/1 Gone Freaks because they don't have the Bomber Affinity. Moving right along from these 0 and 1 cost cards, we are going to be moving on to the 2 required energy costs, and we're only going to be playing 4 of them. It is 4 copies of the 2/1 Gorinu. This Gorinu is a card that has an activate main ability anywhere on the field that lets you switch him to resting, and look at the top card of your deck, and if you want to leave it there, you can. Otherwise, you can put it on the bottom of your deck. It is important to note that this card does not have to be on the front line or the energy line specifically to activate its effect. Normally, more times than not, you're going to be leaving him on the back row, and every turn you can just switch him to resting and then check the top card of your deck. If you're going to be using Risky Dice as a successful advantage, you can. Or if you need to raid the Genthru, you can do that as well because you know the next card that's going to be coming. It also is important to note that this card is not a hard once per turn, meaning if you have multiple copies of Gorinu on your field, you can switch one to resting, look at the top card of your deck, then play another card to resolve the effect, and then you can Gorinu again with the other one that hasn't used its effect, thus looking at the next card in your deck and extending your plays even further. On top of the fact that it is an active trigger, you want to see as many Gorinus as possible and as frequently as possible, so he's in the deck at 4 copies. Moving right along to now our 3 cost cards and another one of our 3 bombers, we are going to be playing 4 copies of the 3/1 Bara. This Bara, unlike the Gorinu, has a specific place that he has to be in order to activate his main ability. It has to be on the front line, but he doesn't have to switch himself resting to do so, which means he can stand on the front line and put up a 3000 BP body. Bara's ability, when played, you can reveal the top card of your deck, and if you reveal a card with 2 or more required energy, you can choose one character on your opponent's front line and reduce its BP by 1000. You then take the card that you revealed off of Bara and leave it on the top of the deck, or put it on the bottom if you don't want to see it. Bara's main purpose in this deck not only is to sculpt the top of your deck, but it's also to get your opponent's characters in range for when the raid Genthru drops, he'll be actually able to sideline something. Continuing with our 3 cost cards, we will be playing 4 copies of the 3/1 sight card, the specified slot Risky Dice. Risky Dice is such a fun card to use whenever you have it on your board. The fact that this card is not a hard once per turn means that if you have multiple ones on your field at the same time, you can utilize it for multiple different effects throughout your turn. The sight, of course, gets to play itself active when played on a 3 cost card, and with an activate main ability, it switches itself to resting, means you can activate it as soon as it is played. That ability, of course, is to choose one character on the field. You then reveal the top card of your deck, and if you happen to reveal a card with 2 or more required energy, you give that targeted character a 1000 BP boost until the end of the turn, and you get to add the revealed card off the top of your deck to your hand. Of course, if you miss and reveal one with 1 or less required energy, that character you targeted gets sidelined, no exceptions. And the card you revealed gets left on the top of the deck. Back in the day when the set first came out, Risky Dice's one and only ability was to give that BP boost to any character on your field. However, all of that changed with the release of Volume 2, as we got a brand new card that would ultimately shift the strategy of the Blue Bomber deck to something where you could do a little bit more cheeky shenanigans with Risky Dice, which we'll get to here in a moment. Another new card in the deck that we received out of Volume 2 was a much needed replacement for its predecessor, a brand new color in the deck in Team Genthru. It is also counted as a Genthru name while it's on the field, so it's technically a raid target if the situation ever came up. When played, you're able to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and leave them on the top of your deck in any order. You can also place any card that you don't want on the bottom of your deck instead of leaving it on the top. The inclusion of this card in the deck gives the brand new control style strategy of the deck a massive boost, as you're now able to sculpt the next 2 cards on your deck instead of 1, and you don't have to worry about missing on any of your reveals, whether it's through the Bara, the Risky Dice, or even the Raid Genthru itself. Also, it stands at a 4000 BP body, which gives the deck another big character to have on your field besides the 4000 BP Raid. Moving along to our final character of the deck, the only raid in the deck and the big boss of the deck, 4 copies of the 4/1 Genthru. This Genthru, when played, reveals the top card of your deck, and if you happen to reveal a card with 2 or more required energy, you're able to sideline any character in an opponent's front line as long as it has 3000 or less BP. The revealed card, of course, going back on the top of your deck, or if you don't want it, you can put it on the bottom as well. When used in tandem with the Bara card, any character in your opponent's front line with 4000 BP or less automatically becomes free game with the Genthru. If you reveal the top card of your deck and it happens to be one that you need off of the Bara, you drop the 1000 BP, then you leave it on the top of your deck, then raid the Genthru, reveal the very same card, and you can out that targeted character as long as it has 3000 or less BP. The only problem becomes is if you happen to have a character to deal with that has 5000 BP, which means you have to do double Bara and then raid Genthru, which it is possible, but it's not as possible as it would be to just do 1 Bara to then raid into Genthru. Back when Volume 1 came out, this was arguably the worst raid that came out of this set, as it couldn't even out anything with a solid 4,000 and could do 3,000 on a gamble at that, and wasn't even a guaranteed removal. However, as the deck evolved with Volume 2 support, the odds and the gamble, I say, is a little bit less of a gamble and more of a guarantee, with so many cards now able to sculpt the top of your deck. I personally, back in the day, did not really enjoy this card when I played it, and the Gods of Union Arena did hear that, as in my initial openings with this set, I opened 2 of the Star Genthru's, as were my only stars that I ever pulled in Hunter x Hunter. And so I had to complete the playset and got the last 2 when this deck actually became good in Volume 2. The last new card that came out of Volume 2 that's going to be included in this deck is 4, count them, 4 copies of the 4-1 out event card. This event card, even though it does not have a trigger, is a must in this deck if you want to have solid removal with the deck. It does require 4 energy to play, but the amount of advantage you get off of this card is phenomenal and warrants it to be played in the deck at 4 copies. The card reads, you may choose a character on your opponent's front line instead of a character on your field for the next activate main ability on a risky dice that you activate this turn. What this means is that if you see the next card of your deck is going to be a 0 or a 1 required energy card, instead of putting it on the bottom of your deck and hoping for your next card to be a good one, you can activate out and intentionally miss with the risky dice, thus outing your opponent's character instead of sidelining one of your characters. Another funny thing you can do is, back with the 0-1 summon bar I mentioned earlier in the video, remember how I said that it can be treated as a 2? You don't have to use it as a 2 if you don't want to. If you reveal the top of your deck and you see that that sub and borrow is remaining on the top of the deck, you can activate out and you can use risky dice, and you can intentionally miss by counting that card as a 0 instead of a 2. And if you have another risky dice on the board, you can activate its effect and then treat it as a 2, thus adding it to your hand and giving your character an 1000 BP boost. It is a very niche play and you wouldn't think it happens very often, but I can tell you with experience playing this deck quite a bit, it happens more times than you think. Overall, I had my doubts of this card when it was coming over in Volume 2, and I wasn't too sure if I was going to be playing it at 4. It started only with 2, but as it became more apparent that this was honestly another removal card, so the deck now having 12 forms of removal meant that it had to be played at as many copies as possible to see it as frequently as I could. One of the last cards I wanted to touch on here is, of course, the special of the deck, the Release event card. One of the few event cards that when Hunter x Hunter Volume 1 came out was a 2 action required event card, and this one being 3 required energy and 2 action to play. The special, of course, can out any character on your opponent's front line with 5,000 BP or less. It has a certain text in the beginning that says that you have to reveal any number of cards in your hand when you play it. But the reason for that is you have to have 3 bomber affinities revealed either in your hand or on your field at the time of activating this card to reduce its action by 1. In my time playing this deck, I've never really had to reveal any cards in my hand, as the Genthru is a bomber, the sub's a bomber, the bar is a bomber, and the brand new sub and bar is a bomber. You're usually going to have more than enough bombers on your field unless you absolutely brick with your hand and have just gone Gorinu on your board, which none of those are bombers. And otherwise, you're really going to have all the bombers you need to just straight play this card for its required 3 energy and 1 action cost. Last card to just breeze through here, 4 copies of Bisky's Training, your AP Flipper, your final, whatever you want to call it. 4 copies, as you're going to be doing a lot of shenanigans. It is important to note that this card is not exempt from the risky dice rule, that if you happen to reveal it on the top of your deck, you can simply add it to your hand as it has over 2 required energy. So once again, here's the card by card and the whole deck breakdown. We've got our wheel queued up and we've got our 3 opponents ready. We'll see who we face off against in our 3-round tournament. The Great Wheel of Union Arena deck spinning round to see who will be the first round opponent for our brand new Blue Bomber deck. It looks like it's going to be a throwback to Attack on Titan, and specifically the Red Aaron Attack Titan deck from AOT. It is important to note that this is going to be the Volume 1 version of the Attack on Titan deck, as we already have Volume 2 on the horizon, which will give a slight boost to the Tall Aaron deck in the sense of a new Raid Aaron, and as well as potentially putting an Armin into the deck. But that will be at a later date, and right now it's just going to be the original Aaron deck from Attack on Titan Volume 1. Starting things off with losing the die roll and going second against the Tall Aaron deck. This deck is able to get to its required 8 energy very quickly with help of that Stepping Aaron, as well as the inclusion of a couple cards such as the double energy generating Mikasa and the Hanj, as well as the Basement card, which is a triple energy generating site card. I'm going to play Gorinu on the back row and try to call the bluff of the Aaron deck with putting a card on the front line, keeping him from stepping back. And Aaron is going to stay on the front line as we see Mikasa and Aaron, and then raiding Mikasa, which when played, if Aaron is on the field, she is able to instantly sideline any character on the front line with 3,500 or less BP, which of course happens to be Summon Bara, so that's going to be easily taken out and dealing a quick 2 points of damage on the third turn. We're going to play Summon Bara, check the top card of the deck and see if we want to keep it there. We also have the Gorinu sitting on the back row, which we could have done anyway, and we're going to raid the Genthru, revealing a risky dice on the top, and is able to out anything with 3,000 or less, which happens to be the Stepping Aaron, taking him out of the equation pretty quickly here in the game. And now debating if we want to play defensively or offensively. It looks like we're going to play a little bit safer with putting the Gaunt on the front line to draw that risky dice that was set on the top of the deck. And discard a Team Genthru color. Going to hit for 1 damage and give another Raid Mikasa out of life to our opponent. Down on 1 life. And we'll see if that is able to sustain, but now it looks like a Raid Aaron is going to be dropping on the board. A 6/1 Raid Aaron during your turn gets an 1,000 BP boost, which makes it 5,000. It automatically has damage 2 as well, which is going to be an easy block for the Gon, only taking 1 damage off of the Mikasa. The Aaron has another ability that when attacking gets to pop anything with 2,000 or less BP by pitching a couple cards, but the requirement is you have to have 3 or less life when that happens, and currently this early in the game is not the case. I'm going to play the risky dice on the back row, of course getting set active, means that you can activate its ability as soon as it is played. And now debating what to do with our final move. It looks like we're just going to release the Raid Aaron, and then going to use risky dice to get that Bara off the top of our deck, give the Genthru an 1,000 BP boost, swing and get an active trigger for the only swing that we're going to, and pass turn. Kind of trying to get back a little bit here, but it doesn't look like it's going to be very fortuitous. We're going to see an Armin playing on the back row. When played, is going to give the Aaron an 1,000 BP boost. And then going to get Hardened Punch, taking out our Raid Genthru, and looks like our opponent is not the only Hardened Punch in the hand at the time. Going to hit a Genthru out of life and then a Bara non-trigger. This deck doesn't have a lot of triggers that are fortuitous. You have to play a lot more cards that don't have triggers. The 1/1 Genthru, the Searcher Bara, the 0/1 Summon Bara, and the brand new Out card don't have triggers. So that is a total of 14 cards in your deck that do not have a trigger, meaning you're not going to get a lot of help out of life throughout the course of the game. You can use Risky Dice effect and act Summon Bara, giving them a 1,000 BP boost. After outing the Aaron once again with our Raid Genthru and a successful hit off the top, I'm going to play Bara to the front line, check the top card of the deck, and it is the one we want. So it's going to drop Mikasa's BP down to 3,000, and of course another active trigger out of life. Wasn't really going to stop Summon Bara from attacking as they were too weak anyway. See a Dedicate Your Heart AP flipper. Now the 8/1 Aaron dropping double Hardened Punch to take out 2 cards. And then the Raid Aaron has an ability to take out any card with 2,000 or less BP as an activate main, swinging in with damage 2, and that will do it for game 1. Alright, so not exactly the best showing to start things off here. Of course, getting double specialed and a Raid to take out your entire front line would really do anyone in. But we're going to move right along to game 2, and it looks like we're going to have a small deck as well in Yellow Esper Sisters from One Punch Man. This deck, likewise to a lot of the event spam decks, really embodies the true fashion of utilizing an event card deck. This deck can use events like no one else, even against comparisons such as Purple Song from Sword Art Online and Red Noel Mimosa from Black Clover. The Esper Sisters gets to use event cards in ways that those two decks just can't do. It is able to recur event cards back from the sideline. It gets insane draw power, and it also lets you free play some event cards if you meet the right conditions. Both our opponent and ourselves have to take the redraw here, and going to be Esper Sisters taking the lead, with it leading off with a Blizzard. Simply draw a discard. Going to be pitching a hero, a final, right off the bat. And now we're going to start with our turn, which is going to be a Summon Bara and then a Gon. After checking the top card, we play the Gon, draw said card, and they're going to pitch a Genthru off to pass turn. Both these decks don't have to get any higher than 4 required energy, so the back row is going to be pretty safe in terms of what's being played on the back row. So we see a Blizzard playing, able to search the top 4, grab the 3/1 Tornado, and pitching off an Esper Sisters event card, and passing turn. The important thing to note is that even though Esper Sisters is pitching off a lot of event cards into the sideline, they are not stuck there, and in fact will most likely be coming back to the hand later on in the game through the Raid Blizzard's ability to pitch 2 cards out of the hand to recur back any 1 event card from the sideline. You can use Esper Sisters to go top 7 and finding 1 Blizzard and 1 Tornado to add both to the hand. The rest, the bottom 5, go to the bottom of the deck. Play a double energy generating Tornado on the back row and then raiding a Tornado on the front row means for a free activation of any event card from the hand, and that means a free AP Flipper and Hero to be activated right off the bat. That move is honestly a very powerful move when playing against the Esper Sisters, and one you always have to be aware of. Going to use the Raid Blizzard's ability to pitch 2 cards to grab back an event card, activate Hero once again to flip some more APs, then going to activate the Color Blizzard ability, go top 4 of the deck, look for any event card that you might want from the deck. If you don't want any, just put them on the bottom. I'm going to play a Tornado on the front line, which will give a blanket protection to all Blizzards on the front line that are immune from trigger abilities, as well as character abilities. Going to be hitting a Bisky's Training out of life, and similar to our matchup against Red Aaron, the life is not exactly going to be a lot of help for us in this game. Going to activate Sub's effect, go top 4, and find the Risky Dice, the MVP of the deck to get this deck going. And of course, if you add a card, you have to discard. Going to pitch off a Summon Bara. Going to activate Bisky's Training to restand some action points, play the Risky Dice, act to our field, and going to Bisky's Train again. So that is now, if you count them, 3 finals in the sideline already. Going to activate Bara's effect to check top card of the deck, see if we want to keep it there. It is a 0/1 gone, and activate the out card, which means we can intentionally miss with our Risky Dice and send the Tornado right to the sideline. Going to play Bara on the front row once again. He is not a hard once per turn, so we're going to take that Gaunt that was sitting on the top of the deck, just throw him on the bottom because we don't need him anymore. Going for a swing and right off the bat hitting a special out of life. You know, it can really happen to anyone, but it seems like Bombers had the worst of it happen in terms of running into bad triggers. Going to raid another Blizzard on the front line, going for her ability that when played gets to draw 2 cards. We see another Esper Sisters in the hand as well as a Psychic Power, and instead is going to be I merely immobilize them event card, which is going to switch Bara to resting, and he remains set to resting next time he be switched active. Blizzard are going to swing in and it's going to hit a special. Unfortunately, we can't deal with the other Raid Blizzard and have to take out the Tornado as she blankets both of the Blizzards from being hit by trigger abilities and still get a pass turn. With a Genthru and a Bara in resting on the front line, thankfully Bara does not have to be in any particular position in order to activate his ability, unlike Goranu, who is being played on the back row. Also going to play Team Genthru on the front line to see what the next 2 cards are, and potentially activating Risky Dice, and we are, to reveal that there's a Raid Genthru on the top of the deck, adding it to the hand and giving Bara an 1,000 BP boost. He'll swing in for 3,000 and hitting yet another Raid out of life. It is going to be a Raid Blizzard, which when played is allowed to draw 2 cards. Having only 2 energy on the back row might seem detrimental for any deck, but the fact that Blizzard able to draw 2 on your opponent's turn after getting tripped out of life, and all 3 of them on the front line as well, means that you're able to do a lot more stuff with your back row to keep this game moving. Going to see another activation of Esper Sisters going the top 7 once again to find exactly 1 Tornado and 1 Blizzard, and it is another Raid Tornado that's getting added to the hand. Of course, when played, is allowed to get a free activation of the event card, as well as if an event card is being utilized, she gains impact for the turn. Blizzard is going to pitch 2 cards off to recur an event card back from the sideline as long as it is not a special, so we're going to grab back a hero. Going to activate the Color Blizzard once again, go top 4, looking for any of those event cards. Didn't grab any the last time one was played, and it doesn't look like they're going to do one now, and so go all back to the bottom, and Raid Tornado on the front line, getting the free play of an event card to use Psychic Power to out our Team Genthru. Blizzard, or the Tornado, now swinging in with Impact, gets in freely, deals a non-trigger with a Summon Bara, now hits an active Goranu to see who we're going to give it to. We're going to give it to Bara to preserve life a little bit, and then Genthru will be forced to block out as we only have 1 life remaining. Last big turn, obviously having to get rid of the Raid Tornado, as if any event card is activated, which it is no doubt they would be, with any of the Blizzards being able to pitch 2 cards off to recur an event card. Forced to move up Summon Bara. Goranu checks the top card of the deck to see if we'll be able to utilize Risky Dice. Instead, we're going to start things off with Bara, dropping the Tornado down to 3,000 BP by revealing a Raid Genthru on the top of the deck. Use Risky Dice to grab the Raid to the hand, and then give the 1,000 BP boost to Sub on the field. All of that without even using 1 action so far, so we're going to play the Summon Bara, check the top card if we want it, and then Genthru and then Raid on top of it, revealing that it is what we need to out the Raid Tornado. And now at this point, it is going to be swinging in for damage. 3,000 Bara will attack, no trigger, 3,000 Sub, and of course runs into a yellow color trigger, which will stun our last attacker, the Raid Genthru, And this pretty much should be wrapped up, as we already saw our opponent pitch off a Let's Go earlier on in the game, which will give the Blizzard the ability of Impact as well as 2000 BP, and playing a Blanket Protection Tornado just for the heck of it, saving the Impact to clear up the front line a little bit, swings for that last Impact, and that will do it for Game 2. Oh, Bomber deck, can we have one good opponent here for our final round and a chance for one win in this video? Let's see. Oh, I do not think so. Going to be taking on the arguably best deck in the format, the yellow Neon Genesis Evangelion Heroine deck. Arguably the strongest deck and the most consistent deck that we've seen in a long time in the game of Union Arena, taking on our old faithful Blue Bomber deck here for round 3. The problem that this deck is already going to face is the fact that they are both only having to get up to a maximum of 4 required energy. On top of that, there are a lot more aggressive bodies in the Heroine deck that are going to be playing at 4000 BP, whether it is the Rei that was just added to the hand, the Mari, or the Asuka. All of them are going to be giving Genthru a run for their money. Going to be seeing a chance to go first, and we're going to activate Sub to look at the top 4, looking for a Risky Dice or a Bomber Affinity. Going to choose to grab the Bar off the top of our deck, and of course if you add one from your hand, you must discard a card. We're going to pitch off a 0-1 Genthru and then play Gorinu, getting him set on the back row as early as possible. It is the most opportune play, as you're now going to be able to sculpt the top of our deck as we continue on through this game. You're going to see Mari to draw a discard, then an AP Flipper to play Misato, and then playing Rei on the front line to simply pass turn. Rei being on the front row this early means that we're going to have to play a lot more aggressively to try and out her as fast as possible. We already have the 1 on the field and haven't seen another one go to the sideline just yet to get the free play advantage. We can see Genthru being played on the front line, resculpt the top 2 cards of the deck. 1 action point remaining, choosing to whether or not to activate Risky Dice here, and looks like we are going to do so, revealing the Summon Bara to add to the hand, give the Genthru a 1000 BP boost. Really the only reason we did that was to shape the top card and get the Summon Bar off the top of the deck, as we want what's underneath it early for next turn. More bodies we can put up against the yellow Heroine deck quicker the better, as anytime this game gets longer drawn out, yes, we want Genthru to play the long game, but against this deck, it's not really going to happen. Mari's going to be played active after the 3-1 Asuka pops the Rei on the back row, draws a couple cards, and able to stand Mari active. And not sure if our opponent was really taking it easy on us here, as there's just going to be a Rei on the front line instead of saving the 1 BP to get an extra swing with Amari. But more bodies for Yellow Heroine, the better. Taking 2 damage, and a special is going to take out the problem card in the Mari to not allow any cards to get extra swings. So we're able to only take a couple of damage and at least mitigate some of the resources and the pain for this opening few turns. Activate Gorinu after playing the Risky Dice so we can sculpt a couple cards. Use Bara's effect to drop the Rei by 1000 points after revealing a correct card on the top of the deck. Now going to activate Risky Dice effect to choose the sub on the field. Reveal Team Genthru so he gets an 1000 BP boost, sitting at 3000. All of that, of course, only costing 1 action to play, so another Team Genthru will be played to sculpt the next 2 cards. We still have 1 more activation of Risky Dice this turn. Whether or not we find the out event card to take care of one of the Reis. Instead, it looks like we're going to use Risky Dice to reveal a final on the top of the deck. And we'll give Bar an 1000 point boost. We're then going to play a Team Genthru on the back line. Sculpt the next 2 cards of the deck. It is a Release and a Gone. The Gone will go to the bottom of the deck and the Release on the top. So we'll be drawing into a special at the start of the next turn. Bar is going to swing in and deal some damage. Getting a Get Trigger, obviously the main focus of the Heroine deck is to get as many cards with Get Triggers as possible, and the Misato sitting on the back row can transform any of those Get Triggers into a Play Trigger instead, so they can play themselves onto the field. You're going to see another Misato playing on the back row, activate Mari's effect to boost the Asuka up to 4000, then the SR Asuka is going to drop on the board, popping the Mari that just activated its ability on the back row to out our Team Genthru on the front line. Asuka, of course, also gets to, as a free play of a character with 1 or less required energy, free plays the Misato on the back row, and now going to swing in for some damage. Taking the top card out of life instead is going to be tripping a Raid Genthru out of life. We are going to raid him, unfortunately not able to use the ability as the Asuka was given an 1000 BP boost by the Mari, and so she will not be able to be removed even if we reveal the right card with the Raid Genthru. It's one of the biggest flaws of the deck that usually if you hit a Raid out of life, it can be very detrimental to your opponent. But with Genthru, you have to hit the correct card off the top of your deck and hope that your opponent has a card on their front line with 3,000 or less BP. Sub and Bar are going to sculpt the top card of the deck. We're going to activate Risky Dice, grabbing a release off the top of the deck to give Sub an 1,000 BP boost. So we have a release in hand. Going to activate Bar's ability to reveal a Genthru on the top of the deck, and is going to be left there, obviously, as we have the out card, which means we can miss with our next Risky Dice activation with that 0-1 Genthru on the top of the deck, checking the sideline to see if there are any rays in the sideline, and it looks like we will go after the ray to remove her with the Genthru ability. It's going to pitch a ray off to free play a ray back from the sideline, and then using the release to out the other ray, and force our opponent to pitch a couple cards off if they want to play the rays back. Now, at this point, we really shouldn't have swung in for any damage because of the fact that the rays, when sideline, are able to draw the opponent a card. Got away with one lucky hit there, but this time it's going to be blocked smartly with the ray to draw a free card, and we're just going to pass turn, not allowing for any more advantage. Really should have left both rays on the front line, as they're not really going to be proving any difficulty in a threat, as now with a free spot opened up, the Asuka is able to be played again. And debating on whether to pop the ray, and it is going to pop the ray to out our Bara on the front line. Also gets to draw a card when sidelined, and of course gets to free play another character due to the Asuka effect. Going to use Misato's ability to switch to resting to switch the Mari active, and go in for some extra damage on a couple 4,000 swings and pass turn. It is a slugfest back and forth here with a couple 4,000 on the front line. Asuka, of course, able to pitch a couple cards to get impact later on in the game. And the Mari and the other Asuka on the front line providing just a little bit of extra support and free blockers against our Genthrus. Going to activate Bar's ability, checking the top card. It is Bisky's Training, so it's going to drop one of the Asukas down by 1,000 BP. Revealing the Bisky's Training off of the Risky Dice, adds it to the hand and gives the raid an 1,000 BP boost, so it's sitting at 5,000 BP on the front line. Going to activate Release to out the non-targeted Asuka, the non-3000, and now just going to swing in for some damage. Going to hit a draw trigger, and then swinging in the other one to out the Mari and passing turn. Game has gotten a little bit more balanced on both sides, but Heroine loves to be at this kind of advantage with a lot of cards in hand and a lot of plays with double Misato on the back row. Going to be playing Mari on the front line, and an AP Flipper playing another Mari, and then just special out the Bara once again. Double Mari and a couple Asukas on the front line. Deals it for 1 damage to pass turn. We are down to our last life, and unfortunately, we are in the impact range of the Asuka, so that has to be the first card that has to go here if we are planning to survive for another turn. Gornu will check the top card of the deck and see if we want to keep it there. We have a Risky Dice in hand, as well as a Bisky's Training, and debating on whether to leave the card on the top or bottom. I'm going to activate Gone and draw that card after leaving it on the top, pitching the Genthru off. Activate Bisky's Training, play a Genthru on the front line to check the top card of the deck and see if we want to keep it there. And it looks like whether or not we'll be able to activate Risky Dice here, I believe we have an out in the hand to take care of the Asuka. But if we do that, that'll be the end of our turn. So whether or not Risky Dice needs to be activated now to give a BP boost to the Sub and Bara, instead, it's going to be a Raid Genthru. It's going to be revealing the out card on the top of the deck to out the only card it can, the 3,000 Asuka on the front line. And now it's just hope and swing to deal some damage here, even though the Maris on the front line will both give that Asuka the ability to attack again. So our opponent's going to be taking some free shots here, hitting a Ray out of life. He's going to play to the field off the Misato ability, and then just taking another pity shot and adds yet another Asuka to the hand. So at this point, it was not in the cards for us to really pull off a win against the best deck in the format, as Asuka is now just going to be getting the ability of impact. Of course, we're just going to accept the loss in Game 3. Well, that definitely could have gone better. I knew it was bound to happen at some point recording these Hunter x Hunter videos, that we would have at least one winless video, but I hoped it wouldn't happen this quickly, and especially with a deck that I thoroughly enjoy, like the Blue Bomber deck. With the games out of the way, let's break down the objective pros and cons of the deck, starting of course with the pros. First, the deck is very consistent. Only needing to get up to a maximum of 4 required energy, it's incredibly hard to find a hand that doesn't work. And with the amount of cards you're able to rearrange on the top of your deck, you're more times than not able to find exactly the card you're looking for. Second, it's great in the long game. Even though we didn't get a chance to see that in action today, as all of the opposing decks were more quicker decks, Bomber deck is a deck that can outgrind any opponent by keeping them off of their powerful cards with all of their removal, and waits for the opportune time to end the game. Third, it has unique removal. One of the few decks in the game that has a total of 12 forms of removal, Bomber can take out just about any threat that stands in its way. Whether it's through the out event card and intentionally missing off of your risky dice, lowering the BP enough so that the raid can take care of it, or just simply using a release special to out anything under 5000 BP. And now of course for the cons. First, it's a control deck. Normally control decks in trading card games are hit or miss as to whether or not they'll be able to control the game in their favor, and Bomber is no exception. If it can get off to the start it's looking for and keeps its cards intact, it can win pretty easily. But if it can and has to play according to the opponent's aggressiveness, it's going to have a really hard time keeping up with all of that pressure. Second, it still depends a lot on luck. Even though we got all of these new support cards to make the gamble less of a gamble, you're still going to have to gamble to get those top cards you need. If you can get the one that you want, you're in good shape. If you don't, you either have to leave that card on the top of your deck and risk not utilizing any of your effects, or you throw the card on the bottom of your deck and actually take a gamble as to whether or not the card you reveal is going to be one that you want. Third, it doesn't have any ways to deal extra damage. Gen 3 Remains is one of the only decks in Hunter x Hunter that doesn't have any cards that can get extra damage, such as Impact, Damage 2, or Double Attack. That being said, it is solely reliant on keeping its full front line intact to keep up aggressive pressure. If it can't do that, you're going to be taking a lot more damage than you're able to dish out, and ultimately will just end up losing the game. Despite the 0-3 record, I still really enjoy playing this deck whenever I can, and hope that some of you out there will still give this deck a try. Leave a like and a comment down below if you enjoyed the video at any point. Subscribe to the channel if you find yourself coming back to these videos, and stay tuned because we have a lot more fun Union Arena content on the way.